Hi there, today we're going to cover the NXG frame slide out. This is your through frame slide brought to you by Norco Industries or BAL RV Products. Today's video is going to cover the flush floor style. This can also happen in your above floor with the NXG through frame slide out. And it's going to be nose diving. As this room comes in, it dips down naturally. Once it reaches that center focal point, the tip of the floor is going to get extremely close to your subfloor. And as the top hits on the outside of the coach, the bottom will start to draw back up on you. And you should be free and clear of the subfloor itself, not tearing any lino or damaging anything inside the RV. In a situation where you feel that it is nosediving or it has scratched or torn your lino in your coach, there's a couple of things you can check. First things first, you're going to want to check the subfloor of the RV with a long, either straight edge bubble level or a 2x4 piece of tubing, something that's flat that you can stretch across the floor of the RV by simply laying it down. Obviously, I'm using a shorter bubble level on this. You would get something much longer than this and ensure that there's not a crown in that subfloor. Could be everything's correct with the slide out, all the adjustments, the box construction. And what's happening is there's a crown in that floor, a high point, and that's why you're tearing the lino. Once you've eliminated that being one of the issues causing the lino damage, or the nose diving that you believe is happening on the room, you can cycle the room completely in. And once you've done that, you can take your level with the coach being level and set it on the floor of the slide box itself and ensure that that's sitting relatively level. So we'll go ahead and do that at this time. This slide out box, as it's coming in, once it reaches that center focal point, the floor starts to drop and comes extremely close to the lino, but never damages or actually scrapes across it. Now the top started to touch on the outside of the slide room where your T-metal is now hitting the sidewall of your coach. Now the room starts to pull back up and away from the subfloor. Once the room is sealed, our coach currently is level. Take my bubble level, set it on the floor of my RV, of the box itself, the slide box, and I'm sitting right where I need to. I'm sitting real close to being level. In this situation, my adjustments are more than likely sitting right where they need to be. We're not having a nose diving type situation on this particular unit. If it was not sitting at that level point, there's some adjustments you can make on the end conditions on the outside of the coach underneath the slide box. And we're going to take a minute here and we're going to go to the outside of the coach and show you those adjustments that you can make and see if that corrects your nose diving issue. All right, now that we're on the outside of the coach, what we're going to be looking for is underneath the box, there's going to be two rams that are coming out and connecting to the bottom of the slide out box. We've got one located in this area, another one in behind our skirt metal on the other side over here. Some tools that you may need for this particular adjustment is going to be a 3/4 inch socket and a ratchet. If you have the capability of having a 3/8 or 1/2 inch adapter with the 3/4 socket, you can use an impact as well for this repair, and an opened end 3/4 inch wrench. From there, you can make your appropriate adjustments on the box and potentially eliminate that nose diving situation. So now that we're underneath the unit and we're looking at one of our rams coming out of the main rail and connecting to the underside of the slide out box, you have your end condition and then the inner ram of the NXG through frame slide, which is in turn being pulled through another channel on the inside of the frame rail underneath the unit, another open C channel that has a slight curve or bow to it to allow this room on a flush floor situation to come all the way out and drop down flush in the pan. If you're having that nose diving effect and it is tearing the lino, it could be simply in the adjustments. First thing you're going to do is make sure that your lags in the top hat of your end condition, where the box is secured to the rams themselves, these are nice and tight. That could be causing some issues in play and allowing that room to dip down a little further than what it should, causing that damage to your lino. Once you've ensured that those are nice and tight and secure, all your connection points to the box to the slide, if it's nose diving, there's a good chance that the adjustments were done a little improper. They got too much height on the back side of the room, and that's causing that nose to dive down and dig into the lino. In order to correct this, we need to break away this 3/4 inch nut. You can do that with an open end or the gear end of the wrench. Run that down out of the way. You're going to have two 3/4 inch nuts holding carriage bolts in place. They're both located on the back side of the end condition hat, one on the other side as well. You can use this, loosen these up. It's like I told you earlier, with an impact, a 3/8 nut driver, and a 3/4 inch socket, or you can use a wrench if that's all you have handy. I'm going to put this on the nut, spin it freely. Careful not to run the nut completely off of the carriage bolt, or else you'll have to get in behind here and resituate that bolt, that carriage bolt, back into place. You can run that completely off of there. I'll go to the other side, loosen up on this one as well. Once I've loosened up on them, now I can take my height adjustment bolt, which is also 3/4 inch. Once again, either with a socket or with a wrench. And just for starters, we're just going to do like a 1/2 inch drop on it, and then tighten everything up, inspect the slide, ensure that it's not nosediving anymore, and I'm still getting and maintaining my good seal on the outside of the coach. Your measurement for this can either be off of your bolt, the distance that you have from the bottom of the end condition to the bottom of the bolt, extend it down until you have another 1/2 inch, start there. Or you can measure the distance from the back side of this plate to the top of your hat. This little gap here, whatever that is, you can measure that and then shrink it by a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this down approximately a 1/2 inch. Once I've done that, I'm going to spin my nut back up to the bottom of the end condition. I'm going to tighten up those two bolts that I loosened up, those two 3/4 nuts in the carriage bolts. I'm going to repeat this process on the other end condition, on the other ram that has the actuator on it, farther down underneath the slide box. Once I've completed that, I can go ahead and cycle the room, ensure that that's corrected my issue, and go from there. Now here we have one of our raw slide out rams for the NXG frame. This is the complete assembly that gets added to the frame rail. Here you can clearly see this is your end condition. The end condition is made up of a couple of components. You got your hat that's going to be raised by your height adjustment bolt up and down to get your height on the back wall of the RV slide. Then you have the lower section of the end condition. That assembly goes together and gets attached to the end of our slide ram, the inner tube. It's connected by two 3/4 inch bolts located inside the channel of the end condition. Those are just the 3/4 inch bolt, and they've got a 3/4 nut on the outside of them, and they have an adjustment available to you there as well, to where if one side of your box wasn't sealing up by, under like 3/4 of an inch or so, you could loosen these two bolts. And you could slide your end condition in by hitting it with a hammer, tapping it in or out, and then tightening up your bolts to achieve a better seal. We'll have another video coming later that'll cover this. What we showed you in the other video, early on we explained that we were breaking this 3/4 inch nut loose on our height adjustment bolt. We were loosening up the two, holding the hat to the lower section of the end condition. Is capable of being raised up or dropped down a little lower if the adjustment was initially set too high or too low. 3/4 inch on the height adjustment. It will allow it to go lower or higher, depending on what you're looking for to achieve the proper seal and the nose of the room not nosediving into the lino. Once you've made all those necessary adjustments, you've got the room set where you need, tighten up your bolts and the nuts in the hat. Ensure on your height adjustment bolt that you've jammed that 3/4 nut tight up against the bottom of the end condition. Now your adjustments are good to go. Your room's no longer nosediving, and you've repaired the issue.